we have a question that was asked previously. It says, is it appropriate to clap in accompaniment of music in worship to God? The short answer to this is no. It is not appropriate for us to clap in accompaniment of music in worship to God. We don't have a lot of information in the New Testament about worship music. There's a fair bit in the Old Testament. There's not a whole lot in the New Testament that instructs us about how we are to worship. So we'll go through the passages that we have. The first is in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 18 and 19. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 18 and 19 says, "And do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart." Very similar to that in Colossians chapter 3, verse 16, it says, "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God." Neither of these passages is particular to the context of formal worship service. That they're not talking about what we do on Sundays. But they're included in there is the instruction that we are to be teaching and admonishing one another. So this is talking about singing spiritual songs, singing worship songs with other people. So while we can't say this is talking about the worship service, it's perhaps even broader than that when we're partaking in singing these things, the purpose of them, or part of the purpose of them at least, is to be teaching and warning one another. The instruction that we see in these verses is that the teaching and admonishing is a goal of all the things that we're doing with music, with worship music. Playing instruments and even clapping are not teaching, and they're not admonishing. Now, you could argue, well, what about like singing a kid's song? Is it, if I have the foolish man's house went splat, right? I do that with my kids all the time, and the foolish man's house goes splat, and I clap my hands real hard. Is that wrong? Well, that's part of the teaching and admonishing, I would say, in that particular case. That's different from when we're adults and teaching and admonishing one another with more complex ideas in the words of the songs that we're singing. We also have 1 Corinthians chapter 14. 1 Corinthians chapter 14 is all about the formal worship service that we do on Sunday, and about leading in worship in particular. Verse 15 in it says, "What am I to do? I will pray with my spirit, but I will pray with my mind also. I will sing praise with my spirit, but I will sing with my mind also." With so little to go on in the New Testament, you might think that my answer that no, clapping is not appropriate is closed-minded or severe, but the way I see it is that God left us instructions for music in the New Testament. He told us to sing. We don't have examples in the Bible of anyone doing anything other than singing, and we have explicit instructions to be singing as part of our worship. And tradition and extra biblical accounts, things outside the Bible, tell us, they confirm this idea that musical instruments in worship was unheard of in the early church, which is all the more remarkable when you look at the Old Testament and you see all the musical instruments and all of the extra fanfare that went along with music worship in as part of Jewish worship, right? The fact that people were coming out of Judaism into Christianity and leaving all of that extra behind and just using their voices. You may say that clapping is different from playing instruments, but I would still say that neither of them is singing, and singing is what we are told to do in the New Testament.
Yeah, and again, this is a much broader discussion about authority, right? And how we establish authority and what we do and not do in Scripture. And these are very specific instructions and or examples, and so we're not going to deviate that, right? Because we're not going to add or take away from what the Lord has provided us. And this is what the Lord has provided us, so we are not going to have guitars and drum sets and all these other things. And if you actually just sit and think about it and be honest about yourself, what that has turned into over the years is it's entertainment, right? And that's not worshiping God, right? We're not here to be entertained by someone, and God certainly doesn't need a musical instrument for his worship. He's not asked us to do that. So again, rather than trying to be entertained by the worship, we need to make sure we give our all and service to the Lord and each other. And so that's really what it boils down to, Kenny.
And just from a practical standpoint, when you're not just singing, then everything else is just noise.
Yeah.
It's distortion. It'll distort the words that you're trying to sing to the person next to you. And so with those things said, I would stand by. I know how to sing with my voice and make a melodious sound to the Lord.
It could be noise. It could be noise. Sometimes it is.
Yeah. And that's what He's required of us, and that's what we should do to Him. We show reverence to God by doing that.